Imagine building a perfect life, penthouse views, a thriving career, only to watch your family burn, your unborn child's ultrasound in a drunken toast, laughing as the flames devour your world. What would you do if the people you loved most called your son a burden and wished he'd never existed? I'm Lauren Hayes, and this is the story of how I lost everything, then found something worth fighting for. Hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. I promise you won't want to miss what's coming next. My name is Lauren Hayes, and at 37 years old, I'd built a life most people only dream of. I'm a senior project manager at Pinnacle Investments, one of the top firms in Chicago, where I oversee multi-million-dollar accounts that keep the city's skyline growing. 8 years of grinding, late nights, skipped weekends, and endless coffee finally paid off. Last year, I bought my dream penthouse in the West Loop. 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view of the Chicago River that sparkled like a postcard every night. A few months later, I added a sleek Lexus to my collection, not too flashy, just enough to make me smile when I slid behind the wheel. I'd figured it out, or so I thought, but every success comes with a price, and mine was about to reveal itself in ways I never imagined. Let me take you back a bit. Growing up, I wasn't the golden child. At 20, I dropped out of college, University of Illinois pre-law track, because I refused to become the lawyer my parents, Margaret and Tom Hayes, had mapped out for me. "You're throwing your life away," Dad barked when I told him I'd rather wait tables than sit in a courtroom. "You'll never amount to anything," he added, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. Mom just shook her head, silent but disappointed, as if I'd personally insulted her perfect suburban life in Oak Park. I didn't care. I took the hard road, serving greasy diner food, then hustling as a receptionist until I clawed my way into Pinnacle as an intern. I proved them wrong, step by painful step, until they couldn't ignore me anymore. Funny how things change when you start making money. As my financial situation improved, my family took notice, like vultures circling a fresh kill. It started small. "Lauren, honey," Mom said over Sunday dinner one night, her pot roast steaming on the table, "your father and I are struggling with the mortgage. The rates keep climbing, and with his knee acting up, it's tough." Her eyes were soft, pleading, the same ones that had stared through me when I begged for help years ago. I couldn't say no. They'd raised me, after all, even if their love came with conditions. So I took over their mortgage payments, $2,500 a month, and threw in their utility bills for good measure. It was a stretch, but my salary and bonuses could handle it. Then there was my younger sister, Sarah Bennett. She's 29, a free-spirited artist who bounces between freelance graphic design gigs and big dreams. "I hate asking," she said one day, over coffee at a trendy cafe downtown, her hazel eyes avoiding mine. "But my boyfriend Ryan and I are drowning in rent. This loft is perfect for my art, but it's $1,800 a month, and we're short." I sighed, wrote her a check, and set up a recurring transfer. A few months later, she hit me up again. "Lauren, I need $15,000 to launch my design brand. It's my shot. I'll pay you back, I swear." I gave it to her, no questions asked, even though deep down I knew I'd never see that money again. She hugged me tight, called me her guardian angel, and I let myself believe it. Back then, my life was predictable, almost comfortable. Weekdays were for work, meetings, spreadsheets, and the occasional victory champagne when a deal closed. Weekends were mine, sometimes catching up on emails, sometimes binging Netflix with a glass of Pinot. Every other Sunday, I'd drive out to Oak Park for family dinner. Mom would fuss over her roast, Dad would ramble about the neighbors, and Sarah would show off her latest sketches, half-finished but always brilliant, she'd say. I'd sit there nodding, cutting checks when they hinted at their struggles, telling myself this was what family did. I was their rock, their safety net. I didn't mind, or at least I convinced myself I didn't. But let's rewind to when I really needed them. At 25, I hit rock bottom. Lost my first decent job after a company downsized. Couldn't pay rent and had $12 in my bank account. I swallowed my pride and called Mom. "Can you help me out just this once?" I asked, voice trembling. "Lauren," she said coldly, "you made your choices. Don't drag us into your mess." Dad didn't even bother picking up when I tried him next. Sarah, still in high school then, just texted, "Sucks to be you." I pulled myself out of that hole alone. Extra shifts, side hustles, anything to survive. They never apologized, never acknowledged it. Yet here I was, years later, bailing them out because family is forever, as Mom liked to say when the bills came due. I thought I'd paid my dues, earned their respect. My penthouse, my car, my title. They were proof I wasn't the failure they'd branded me as. But respect isn't the same as gratitude, and I was about to learn that the hard way. Every time I handed over money, I'd catch a flicker in their eyes. Not relief, not love, but expectation, like I owed them for existing. Sarah's thanks grew shorter. Mom's hugs tighter but less warm. Dad's gruff, good girl, more dismissive. I ignored it, buried it under my need to be the daughter they could finally be proud of. I was wrong. That's the thing about loyalty. It blinds you. I didn't see the cracks forming, didn't hear the whispers behind my back. I thought I was holding us together, but I was just holding them up. And when my life took a turn I never saw coming, that fragile balance shattered. It started with a trip, a break I deserved after closing a $50 million deal. 2 weeks in Costa Rica, sun, sand, and no emails. I packed my bags, kissed my perfect little world goodbye, and stepped into something that would rewrite everything I thought I knew about family, love, and myself. What I didn't know then was that this trip would cost me more than a plane ticket. It would cost me the people I'd spent my life trying to please. And it would give me something worth so much more. After closing a $50 million deal that left me running on fumes, I decided I deserved a break. Costa Rica was calling. 2 weeks of white sand beaches, tropical drinks, and 0 emails. I'd been dreaming of this escape for months, a chance to unplug from the relentless pace of Pinnacle investments and the quiet demands of my family. I packed a suitcase, booked a resort on the Pacific coast, and promised myself I'd leave Chicago's chaos behind. What I didn't pack for was a man named James Carter, or the secret he'd leave me with, one that would flip my perfectly planned life upside down. I met James on my second night at the resort. I was sipping a pina colada at the hotel bar, the ocean breeze tugging at my hair when he slid onto the stool next to me. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, his voice low and warm, like he'd been saving it just for me. He was tall, with dark hair graying at the edges and laugh lines that crinkled when he smiled. Not Hollywood handsome, but the kind of attractive that felt real, lived in. "It's all yours," I said, and 1 drink turned into 3. We talked for hours. About my job wrangling corporate egos, his work designing sustainable buildings in Seattle, our favorite books. He loved Steinbeck, I swore by Atwood. By midnight, we were walking barefoot along the shore, waves lapping at our feet, the stars so bright they felt like a ceiling we could touch. For the next 2 weeks, James and I were inseparable. We hiked through rainforests, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and orchids. We snorkeled in water so clear I could see every fish darting below. At night, we'd share too much wine over dinner, laughing until our sides hurt, then stumble back to my room, tangled in sheets and each other. It wasn't love. I knew that, and so did he. We were 2 adults enjoying a fleeting escape, no strings, no promises. But one night, over a plate of ceviche, he got quiet. "I had a son once," he said, staring at the horizon. "Lost touch after the divorce. If you ever need me, Lauren, find me in Seattle." I laughed it off, thinking it was just pillow talk. "Sure thing," I teased, and changed the subject. I didn't take his number, didn't ask his last name. Why would I? This was temporary. When I flew back to Chicago, I threw myself into work, trying to shake the glow of those 2 weeks. But 3 weeks later, something felt off. I'd wake up nauseous, blaming it on stress. The Sanders merger was eating me alive. Then, during a meeting, the room spun, my vision blurred, and I hit the floor. I woke up in the ER, a nurse peering down at me. "Miss Hayes, you're dehydrated and exhausted," she said, then paused. "And you're 7 weeks pregnant." My stomach dropped. Pregnant at 37 from a vacation fling with a man I barely knew? The doctor ran tests, his face grim. "This is a high-risk pregnancy. Your age, your stress levels. You need to take it easy or you could lose the baby. Or worse." I nodded, numb, clutching the ultrasound photo they handed me. 2 tiny lines that looked like a heartbeat. I drove home in a daze, stopping at a drugstore for a pregnancy test, just to be sure. In my penthouse bathroom, I watched the stick turn positive, then took another the next morning. Same result. My hands shook as I stared at those pink lines, my mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not to me, not now. I was Lauren Hayes, the woman who had it all together: career, home, control. A baby didn't fit. I sat on my couch, the city skyline mocking me through the windows, and ran through my options. Termination was the practical choice. Quick, clean, back to normal. I could try to find James, though I had no clue where to start beyond Seattle architect. Or I could do this alone. For days, I walked around like a ghost, going through the motions at work while my head spun. Termination made sense. My life was too full, too demanding. But then I'd think of James's voice, soft and regretful. I had a son once. What if he'd known about this one? What if I was his second chance? Or mine? I'd never planned on kids, never felt that ticking clock women talk about. Yet, as the shock faded, a strange warmth crept in. I had a good job, savings, a home. I could give this child a life, a great one. Alone, sure, but I'd been alone before and survived worse. By the end of the week, I'd made up my mind. I was keeping this baby. I named him Evan in my head after my grandfather, the only person in my family who'd ever believed in me. But deciding was one thing, living it was another. My body was a mess. Morning sickness hit like a freight train, and the doctor's warnings echoed every time I felt a twinge. High risk, take it easy. I hid it at work, popping nausea pills between calls, praying I wouldn't collapse again. And then there was my family. They'd notice eventually. My absences from Sunday dinners, the way I'd stopped drinking wine. I'd have to tell them, face their judgment. I'd spent my life proving I wasn't the failure they'd labeled me, but this was a curveball even I couldn't predict. As I sat there rubbing my still flat stomach, I whispered to Evan, "It's you and me, kid. We'll figure it out." I didn't know how right and how wrong I'd be. Costa Rica was supposed to be a reset, a reward for years of hustle. Instead, it handed me a test I wasn't sure I could pass. James was gone, a memory fading with the tan lines on my skin. My family was waiting, their hands outstretched for more than I could give. And Evan, he was coming, whether I was ready or not. By the time I hit 7 weeks pregnant, I knew I couldn't hide Evan forever. The morning sickness was relentless, dry heaving over my kitchen sink before work, sneaking crackers into meetings at Pinnacle Investments to keep from passing out. My doctor's words haunted me. High-risk pregnancy, take it easy. But easy wasn't in my vocabulary. Not with deadlines looming and my family's hands perpetually outstretched, I'd made my choice to keep this baby. But telling Margaret, Tom, and Sarah was a hurdle I'd been dodging. I rehearsed it in my head the whole drive to Oak Park for Sunday dinner, my Lexus humming along I-290. I was 37, financially stable, capable. They'd have to see that, right? I was wrong. I pulled into their driveway, the familiar red brick house staring back at me like a judge. Mom greeted me at the door, her apron dusted with flour. "You're late," she said, hugging me stiffly. "Dinner's almost ready." Inside, the dining room smelled of her signature pot roast. Dad was nursing a beer, and Sarah was scrolling Instagram on her phone. We sat down, passing dishes in that quiet rhythm I'd known since childhood. I barely touched my food, my stomach churning, not from nausea this time, but nerves. Finally, as Mom brought out her apple pie, I took a deep breath. I have something to tell you all, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm pregnant, about 7 weeks along. The silence was deafening. Mom's fork clattered onto her plate, Dad froze mid-sip, and Sarah's eyes snapped up from her screen. Pregnant? Sarah said, her tone sharp enough to slice through the tension. Who's the father? I swallowed, keeping my gaze level. His name's James. I met him in Costa Rica. It was a vacation thing. We didn't stay in touch, Sarah snorted, leaning back in her chair. So some random guy knocked you up and bailed? Classy, Lauren. I bristled but kept going. He didn't bail. We agreed it was casual. I'm doing this on my own. Mom's voice cut in, slow and deliberate. Lauren, have you thought about your options? I knew what she meant. Abortion, and it hit me like a slap. I've thought about it, I said, meeting her eyes. I'm keeping the baby. Dad shook his head, his face hardening. Lauren, be serious. You're 37, single with a job that owns you. This isn't the time for a kid, especially not some fling's mistake. Mom nodded, piling on. You should get rid of it before it ruins your life. Pregnancy at your age? It's risky, honey. We're worried about you. Worried about me? I stared at them stunned. I'd expected pushback, maybe disappointment, but not this. This cold, immediate dismissal of Evan's existence. What about the father's history? Sarah chimed in, smirking. You don't even know his last name. What if the kid's got some genetic mess you can't handle? The baby, I said, emphasizing each word, will be fine. Mom scoffed. You can't know that, Lauren. Be sensible. This isn't what you planned, my anger flared. Plans change. I thought you'd support me. Dad's voice boomed. Support you, throwing your life away? Don't be dramatic. Sit down. Let's talk this out rationally. There's nothing to talk out, I snapped, standing up. I've decided if you can't accept that, maybe we need space. Mom's eyes narrowed. That's not fair. We're your family. Family? I grabbed my purse, my voice trembling. Family doesn't tell me to kill my kid because it's inconvenient for them. I stormed out, their protests fading behind me as I slammed the door. Tears blurred my vision all the way back to the West Loop, but I told myself they'd come around. I had to. But they didn't. The next morning, Mom called. Lauren, honey, she said, her tone syrupy. I'm sorry about last night. We were shocked, but you're right. It's your choice. Let's move past it. I hesitated, then sighed. Okay, Mom. I'll see you next Sunday. I wanted to believe her, wanted that olive branch to be real, but the weeks that followed proved it wasn't. Morning sickness turned into all-day sickness, and work noticed. My boss, Richard, pulled me aside. Lauren, you're off your game. What's going on? I spilled it. Pregnancy, high risk, all of it. He was kind, insisted I take unpaid leave. The projects will wait, get some rest. I agreed, dipping into savings to cover the months ahead. Then came the mail, a bill from a clinic in Evanston, addressed to me for a consultation I never booked. A sticky note attached read, "Thought you might need this, Mom." My blood ran cold. Margaret had gone behind my back, scheduled an abortion appointment, and sent me the invoice like a twisted hint. I called her, furious. What the hell is this? She didn't flinch. I was helping, Lauren. You're not thinking straight. Helping, I shouted. You don't get to decide this. I hung up, hands shaking, and blocked her number for a week. Sarah took it further. She texted, "Heard you're keeping the kid. Good luck. My friends in the industry are already gossiping. Lauren slept her way up. Now she's knocked up. I could make it worse if you don't chill." A threat. My own sister, ready to sabotage my career to force my hand. I didn't respond, but the weight of it crushed me. Work was my lifeline. Losing it wasn't an option. Not with Evan coming. I kept funding their lives. Mortgage, utilities, Sarah's rent, hoping it'd buy peace. It didn't. They'd call, all polite concern, but the undertone was clear. Don't mess this up, Lauren. We need you. I'd spent years proving I wasn't the failure they'd branded me as a kid. Now, pregnant and alone, I was fighting that label all over again. But this time it wasn't just about me. It was about Evan. I rubbed my growing belly, whispering, "We don't need them, buddy." I thought I could handle their judgment, their petty games. I was wrong again. What they did next would push me to a breaking point I never saw coming and show me exactly who they'd become. Pregnancy wasn't what I'd pictured, not the glowing, peaceful version from commercials. By my third trimester, I was a wreck. Backaches, swollen feet, and a constant fear that my high-risk label would catch up with me. I'd taken unpaid leave from Pinnacle Investments, dipping into my savings to keep the penthouse afloat and my family's demands met. Evan was coming, whether I was ready or not, and I clung to the idea that I could do this alone. But alone took on a whole new meaning when my world started crumbling, first slowly, then all at once. It started with the birth. 2 weeks before my due date, I was reviewing emails in my living room when a sharp pain ripped through me. My water broke, soaking the rug, and panic set in. I called an Uber, no time for an ambulance, and texted my family from the back seat, "Baby's coming early, Memorial Hospital." I labored alone for 16 hours, gripping the hospital bed, cursing James Carter for vanishing and my family for their silence. Evan arrived screaming, 6 pounds 11 ounces, with a tuft of dark hair like his father's. "He's perfect," the nurse said, handing him to me. I named him Evan James Hayes. James for the man who'd never know he had a son. But perfection didn't last. Hours after delivery, I spiked a fever. The doctors rushed in, faces tight. "Postpartum infection," they said. "Your uterus didn't clear properly. It's serious." I was hooked to IVs, drifting in and out while Evan was whisked to the NICU, born early, too fragile to stay with me. "You almost didn't make it," a doctor told me later. Another day, and we'd be having a different conversation. 3 weeks in the hospital, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to machines beep, thinking I'd lose Evan before I even got to hold him properly. My family? Mom sent a text, "Congrats, hope you're okay." Sarah, "Wow, a boy, cool." Dad, nothing. No visits, no calls, just self-low in their cold, clipped way. I came home weak, Evan still in the NICU, and found out Sarah hadn't stopped at silence. She'd spread rumors at Pinnacle, told a coworker I'd quit over a scandal, implying I'd slept my way up and gotten caught. My phone buzzed with Richard's voicemail. "Lauren, we need to talk. People are saying things. I'm holding your spot, but it's messy." I fought to keep my job, negotiating remote work while I recovered, but the damage stung. My career, my lifeline, was dangling by a thread, all because my sister couldn't stand me defying her. I kept sending their money, mortgage, utilities, Sarah's rent, praying it'd keep the peace. It didn't. Then came James. 6 months in, I was scrolling X late at night, Evan finally home but fussy, when I saw it. A post about a Seattle architecture conference, James Carter listed as a speaker. My heart stopped. I dug deeper, found his firm's site, and emailed him. "It's Lauren from Costa Rica. We need to talk." 2 days later, he replied, "I'm coming to Chicago." He showed up at my penthouse, taller than I remembered, eyes red. "Oh, I didn't know," he said, voice breaking as he held Evan. "I'd have been here." He stayed a week, bought diapers, rocked Evan to sleep, promised to help. "I lost one son," he said. "I won't lose another." I let myself hope, let myself lean on him. Maybe Evan would have a father after all. That hope shattered fast. At Evan's 6-month checkup, the pediatrician frowned at his chart. There's a murmur. Could be congenital heart disease, runs in families. We need tests." James paled when I told him. It matched his own family history, a condition his dad had died from. The next morning, I woke to a note on my counter. "Lauren, I can't do this. I'm not strong enough to watch him suffer. I'm sorry." He was gone. No call, no goodbye, just a coward's exit. I stood there, Evan cooing in his crib, and felt the floor drop out. Alone again, with a sick baby and a ghost of a man who'd promised me the world. I threw myself into survival. Evan's tests dragged on, echocardiograms, specialists, sleepless nights, Googling congenital heart defects. Work was a lifeline I clung to, juggling calls while Maria, a part-time nanny, watched Evan. My family stayed distant, their Sunday dinner and invites lukewarm at best. "He's so loud," Mom complained when I brought Evan over once, his crawling, knocking over a vase. "Can't you control him?" Sarah barely looked up from her phone. They tolerated him, never welcomed him. I stopped expecting more, focused on keeping us afloat, me, Evan, and the bills I still paid for them. But the cracks were widening. Evan grew, crawling, then toddling, smart and perceptive. At 2, he asked, "Why Grandma mad?" After Mom snapped at him for touching her china. He stopped hugging Dad after too many shrugs. I saw him shrink at family gatherings, clinging to me, and it broke my heart. Sarah's wedding plans surfaced. She wanted $50,000 from me for a dream venue. I said no, citing Evan's medical costs. She stormed out, muttering, "You've changed." I hadn't, just my priorities had. I thought I'd seen the worst of them. I was wrong. 6 months later, Evan's heart condition worsened, shortness of breath, a cough that wouldn't quit. The doctor scheduled more tests, warned me about surgery. I was drowning. Work, bills, a toddler who might not make it. My family didn't call, didn't check in. Then Sarah texted one night, "Family dinner tomorrow. Miss you." I wasn't invited, confirmed it with Mom. "Oh, just a small thing. Didn't think Evan should be out late." A lie. They were cutting me out. That was the calm before the storm. What came next wasn't just betrayal. It was a knife to the chest, a collapse I couldn't brace for. Evan's fight was just beginning, and I was about to learn how far my family would go to erase him and me from their lives. Evan's 3rd birthday should have been a milestone. Cake, balloons, a toddler's laughter echoing through my penthouse. Instead, it was a quiet day, just us, because my family couldn't be bothered. His heart condition loomed larger now. Shortness of breath, a persistent cough, and a cardiologist warning. He'll need surgery soon. It's congenital, likely inherited. I'd spent months juggling work, hospital visits, and a savings account drained by medical bills and my family's endless needs. I still sent their money, mortgage, utilities, Sarah's rent, clinging to the ghost of loyalty. But that ghost died the night I saw who they really were. It started with a text from Sarah on a Friday. "Family dinner tomorrow, miss you." I frowned. No one had invited me. I called Mom to confirm. "Oh, just a small thing," she said, her voice thin. "Didn't think Evan should be out late." Bullshit. Dinner was always at 6 p.m., hours before his bedtime. They were excluding us, and it stung deeper than I'd admit. His giggles, a rare light in my exhaustion, when my phone chimed. A video from Sarah. I assumed it was a cute apology, maybe her sketching something for Evan. I opened it, water dripping from my hands, and froze. The shaky footage showed their dining room, wine glasses clinking, faces flushed. Dad raised his drink. To us, family. Mom nodded. Real family. Sarah's voice, slurred, came from behind the camera. "Speaking of family, Lauren's so different since that kid." My stomach twisted. "God, yes," Dad grumbled. "Won't spend a dime on anyone but him. Used to be generous, now it's all Evan's college or Evan's shoes." Mom chimed in. "She's selfish. If she'd listened, gotten rid of it like we said, we'd still have our daughter." Sarah laughed. $50,000 for my wedding? Nope, too busy with that burden. To life before Evan. They toasted, cackling. Then Sarah panned to the fireplace, where they tossed Evan's ultrasound photo into the flames, cheering as it burned. I sat there, tears streaming, Evan splashing obliviously. My phone buzzed again. "Sarah, Jake, you've got to see this. Hilarious." She'd meant it for her fiancé, not me. Seconds later, the message vanished. She'd deleted it, realizing her mistake. Too late. I'd saved it. That night, Evan spiked a fever, 104 degrees, his cough rattling his tiny chest. I rushed him to the ER, the video replaying in my head as I begged the doctor, "Save him, please." He stabilized, but surgery was imminent. I didn't sleep, just held his hand, fury replacing my grief. Monday, I logged into my bank app, not to send Sarah's wedding cash, but to end it all. I canceled the mortgage auto pay for mom and dad, deleted their utility transfers, and cut Sarah's rent. Done. A week later, mom called, frantic. "Lauren, the bank says our payment's late. Fix it." "No mistake," I said, calm as ice. "I'm done paying. You're on your own," she gasped. "What's wrong with you? Is this about dinner? That was Sarah's idea." "I have to go," I said. "Evan needs me." I hung up. They showed up the next day, Margaret, Tom, Sarah, banging on my door. I let them in, ready to face it. "What the hell, Lauren?" Sarah shouted. "My landlord's pissed. Rent's overdue." I didn't flinch. "I've got something to show you." I played the video, their faces paling as their own words echoed back. When it ended, silence hung heavy. Sarah broke it. "You weren't supposed to see that. We were drunk, blowing off steam." "You burned his ultrasound," I said, voice low. "Called him a burden, wished he'd never been born," Mom stammered. "We were upset, honey." "Upset?" I cut in. "You're upset I won't bankroll your lives anymore." Sarah sneered. "You've changed. Used to care about us. Now it's all Evan." "He's my son," I said. "What about us?" Mom cried. "We're family." "Family doesn't resent a child's existence," I shot back. "I gave you everything. Money, time, loyalty. You gave me this." I pointed at the phone. Dad growled. "So you'll let us sink? I'll drive Uber, your mom will clerk at Walmart because of you?" "You're healthy," I said. "Work. Sarah, get a cheaper place." "I'm done." Sarah grabbed her bag. "Keep your money. Don't expect us to play happy family anymore." "I don't," I said, as they stormed out, the door slamming like a gunshot. 2 days later, Evan's surgery came. I sat in the waiting room praying, bargaining with a God I wasn't sure I believed in. Hours later, the surgeon emerged. "He's stable, strong kid." I collapsed in relief, sobbing as they let me see him, tubes everywhere, but alive. That night, a nurse slipped me an envelope, $20,000 cash, a note inside, from a father who once ran for Evan, James. I stared at it, tempted. Medical bills were crushing me. But I mailed it back, unopened, with my own note. "We don't need you. We never did." Weeks later, Evan recovered, laughing, running, a scar on his chest, but a fire in his eyes. My family faded. Mom got a part-time job. Dad drove ride shares. Sarah postponed her wedding, moved home. They sent letters begging me to reconsider. I didn't. One Sunday, I took Evan to Lake Michigan's shore, my Costa Rica dream reborn. We built a sandcastle, the waves crashing nearby. "Just us, buddy," I said, his grin lighting up my world. "Just us," he echoed, hugging me. "Love you, Mummy." "Love you too, sweetheart," I whispered, tears falling. More than anything, we'd lost so much. Family, James, pieces of ourselves. But we'd gained more. Strength, each other, a future I'd fight for. It was enough. It was everything.